The morning of July 15th, 2029, started like any other day for construction worker Jake Thompson. He woke up in his small apartment, made instant coffee, and checked his phone for job listings. Nothing new. The economy was tough, and finding steady work had become nearly impossible. Outside his window, the city looked tired. Pollution hung in the air like a gray blanket, and the streets below were filled with people who looked just as worn out as he felt. Jake wasn't alone in his struggles. Across the world, millions of people were dealing with similar problems. Climate change was making weather patterns unpredictable. Wars were breaking out over water and resources. Politicians argued endlessly while real problems went unsolved. People had lost hope that things could get better. At the Pacific Research Center, Dr. Lisa Park was having the strangest morning of her career. She had been studying space signals for over 20 years, listening for any sign that we weren't alone in the universe. Most days, she heard nothing but cosmic background noise. But today was different. Her equipment was picking up something that shouldn't exist. The signal wasn't random like natural space phenomena. It had patterns. Like a language, even stranger, it seemed to be getting stronger, as if whatever was sending it was getting closer. Lisa called her supervisor, but before she could explain what she was seeing, her computer screen filled with symbols she had never seen before. Meanwhile, in cities around the world, people were starting to notice something unusual. The sky seemed brighter, even though there were no breaks in the clouds. Animals were acting strangely too. Dogs stopped barking. Birds gathered in perfect formations. Even in the busiest cities, a strange calm was settling over everything. President Maria Rodriguez was in the middle of a budget meeting when her aide rushed in with an urgent message. "Mom, you need to see this immediately." She was led to the Situation Room, where military officials were pointing at radar screens, showing objects that defied explanation. "How many?" the president asked. 12 massive objects, each one roughly the size of a city block. They appeared simultaneously over major population centers worldwide: New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Cairo, Sydney. All of them, the objects, weren't like anything humans had ever built. They looked like enormous crystals, translucent and beautiful, floating silently about 2 miles above the ground. They didn't seem threatening, but their presence was impossible to ignore. Within hours, every news channel in the world was broadcasting images of these mysterious visitors. But the most remarkable thing wasn't how they looked, it was how they made people feel. As the crystal ships hovered above the cities, something unexpected happened. The constant anxiety that had gripped humanity for years began to fade. People who had been angry found themselves calming down. Children stopped crying, even in hospitals. Patients reported feeling more peaceful. Jake felt it too, for the first time in months. The tight knot in his chest loosened. He walked outside and joined the crowds of people who had gathered in the streets, all looking up at the beautiful crystal ship floating above their city. Instead of panic, there was wonder. Instead of fear, there was curiosity. Dr. Park's equipment was going crazy. The signals were now coming from all 12 ships at once, and they seemed to be trying to establish some kind of connection. She had studied alien communication theories her whole career, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The symbols on her screen were changing, becoming simpler, almost as if whatever was sending them was learning to speak in a way humans could understand. Then it happened. A voice, clear and gentle, spoke directly into the minds of every person on Earth. It didn't matter what language they spoke or where they lived. Everyone understood perfectly. "People of Earth, we greet you in peace. We are the Andromedans, and we have traveled far to meet you. Please do not fear us. We come not as conquerors, but as friends who wish to help." The voice belonged to someone who called herself Ambassador Vera. She explained that her people had been watching Earth for a very long time. They had seen humanity's struggles and recognized something special, a species with incredible potential that was trapped by its own limitations. "We have walked the path you now walk," Vera's voice continued. "Long ago, our world faced the same challenges yours faces now. We nearly destroyed ourselves through conflict and carelessness. But we learned to work together, to balance different strengths, and to live in harmony with our world. Now we wish to share what we have learned. The ships remained in position for 3 days, and during that time, small groups of Andromedans began to meet with world leaders. They were tall, graceful beings who moved with calm confidence. They wore flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light, and their eyes held ancient wisdom. What shocked everyone was how human-like they appeared, despite clearly being from another world. When asked about this, Ambassador Vera revealed something that would change everything humans thought they knew about their own history. Long ago, before your recorded history began, some of our people lived on this world. We are distant cousins, separated by time and space, but connected by the same origin. That is why we understand your struggles so well, because we have lived them ourselves. The Andromedans didn't demand anything. They didn't try to take control or impose their will. Instead, they made a simple offer. We have knowledge that could help your world heal. Technologies that could end hunger, stop pollution, and bring peace. But these gifts come with a condition. They only work when people choose to work together instead of against each other. Jake watched all of this unfold on the news from his apartment. Like everyone else, he felt a mixture of disbelief and hope. Could it really be possible that help had literally fallen from the sky? After years of feeling powerless, was there finally a chance for real change? Dr. Park found herself selected as one of the scientists who would work directly with the Andromedans. When she first met Ambassador Vera in person, she was struck by the being's kindness and intelligence. Your people have such incredible potential, Vera told her. You create beautiful art, solve complex problems, and care deeply for one another. You just need to learn how to channel these gifts in the right direction. President Rodriguez faced the hardest decision of her career. Military advisors urged caution, warning that this could be an elaborate trick. But she had felt the same sense of peace that everyone else experienced when the ships arrived. Her instincts told her that these beings truly meant no harm. What exactly are you offering? She asked during a private meeting with Vera. Knowledge, came the reply. We will teach you how to create clean energy that heals rather than harms your world. We will show you how to grow abundant food without damaging your soil. We will share medical knowledge that can eliminate most diseases. But most importantly, we will help you understand how to work together as one species instead of many competing tribes. As the first week after contact ended, humanity stood at a crossroads. The old world of conflict and scarcity still existed, but now there was proof that something better was possible. The Andromedans had shown that they possessed technology beyond human dreams, but they insisted that the real transformation had to come from within humanity itself. People around the world began to dream strange dreams. They saw visions of cities that grew like living things, powered by clean energy, and filled with happy, healthy people. They imagined forests that cleaned the air while producing everything humans needed to live well. Most remarkably, they dreamed of a world where working together felt as natural as breathing. The age of miracles was about to begin. But first, humanity had to make a choice. Would they embrace this opportunity to evolve? Or would they let fear and old habits keep them trapped in their current struggles? The answer would determine not just Earth's future, but its place in a vast galactic community that had been waiting patiently for humans to grow up and join them. 3 months had passed since the crystal ships first appeared, and the world was slowly getting used to having alien neighbors floating above major cities. Jake Thompson had started visiting the communications center that the Andromedans had built in Central Park. It looked like a beautiful garden pavilion made of the same shimmering crystal. As their ship stopped the first time Jake walked through the entrance, he felt a warm tingling sensation, like stepping into sunshine after being in a cold room. Inside, holographic displays showed images of the Andromedan homeworld, cities that looked like they were grown rather than built, with buildings that curved and flowed like living trees. Rivers of pure water ran through the streets, and the air sparkled with cleanliness. Ambassador Vera often spoke to groups of visitors, and Jake never missed her talks. She had a way of explaining complex ideas that made them feel simple and obvious. Today, she was sharing the story of her own world's transformation. 500 years ago, Vera began, her voice carrying that same peaceful quality that had calmed the world during first contact. Our planet was dying. We had wars over water, just like you do. Our air was poisoned, our soil was damaged, and our people had forgotten how to trust each other. We were maybe 20 years away from complete collapse. The holographic display showed images of the Andromedan world in its dark period. It looked remarkably similar to Earth, polluted cities, dead forests, and skies choked with smog. Jake felt a chill seeing how similar their problems had been. But then something wonderful happened. Vera continued, our leaders realized that we had been thinking about progress all wrong. We had been competing when we should have been cooperating. We had been taking from our world when we should have been giving back to it. Most importantly, we learned that the greatest technologies only work when people's hearts are in the right place. Dr. Lisa Park, who had become the lead human scientist, working with the Andromedans, raised her hand. What do you mean by that? How can technology depend on emotions? Vera smiled, and the holographic display changed to show something that took everyone's breath away. It was a device that looked like a beautiful flower made of crystal and light. As they watched, the flower began to glow brighter and brighter, until it was producing more energy than a nuclear power plant, but with no radiation, no pollution, and no danger. This is a consciousness-responsive energy generator, Vera explained. It draws power from the quantum field that connects all living things. But it only works when the people operating it are truly working together, thinking about the good of everyone, not just themselves. If someone tries to use it for selfish purposes or to harm others, it simply stops working. Jake felt his mind expanding as he tried to understand this concept. So your technology is actually alive in some way. All advanced technology is alive. Vera replied, when you truly understand the universe, you realize that everything is connected. Your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions, they all have real effects on the world around you. We learn to build machines that respond to consciousness, because consciousness is the most powerful force in the universe. Over the following weeks, the Andromedans began sharing more of their knowledge. They showed humans how to create materials that were stronger than steel but grew like plants. They demonstrated healing devices that could repair damaged tissue by helping the body remember how to be healthy. Most amazingly, they revealed educational systems that made learning feel like play. Jake found himself drawn to the construction technologies. The Andromedans showed him buildings that were alive, walls that cleaned the air, foundations that actually improved the soil beneath them, and roofs that collected water and generated power simultaneously. These weren't just green buildings. They were structures that made the environment better by existing. How is this possible? Jake asked Vera during one of his many visits. Because you stopped thinking of yourselves as separate from nature, she replied. When you realize that humans are part of the natural world, not masters of it, everything changes. You start building with nature instead of against it. President Rodriguez was dealing with the political implications of these revelations. Some countries wanted to grab the alien technology for themselves. Others worried about becoming dependent on beings they still didn't fully understand. But the more she learned about the Andromedans, the more convinced she became that they genuinely wanted to help. The breakthrough moment came when Vera revealed the most important secret of all. During a private meeting with world leaders, she shared something that changed everything humans thought they knew about their own history. Your people are not native to this world, she said quietly. Neither are we. Long ago, before your recorded history, we were all part of the same civilization on a world that no longer exists. Some of our ancestors stayed when our homeworld died. Others, including your ancestors, were sent to preserve our species on worlds throughout the galaxy. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. President Rodriguez was the first to speak. Are you saying we're related? Not just related, we're family, separated by thousands of years and millions of miles, but still family. That's why we understand you so well. That's why our technology feels familiar to some of your people. And that's why we traveled so far to find you, because family doesn't abandon family. This revelation explained so much. It explained why human dreams had always included flying machines and trips to the stars. It explained why humans had always felt like they didn't quite belong on Earth, despite being born there. It explained the deep longing that every human felt to be part of something bigger than themselves. As news of their shared origin spread, something beautiful began to happen. People stopped seeing the Andromedans as mysterious aliens and started seeing them as long-lost relatives who had come home. The fear and suspicion that some humans still harbored began to melt away, replaced by curiosity and love. Jake felt it too. As he learned more about Andromedan technology, it didn't feel like he was learning something foreign. It felt like he was remembering something he had always known. His hands seemed to understand how their tools worked before his mind did. Other humans reported similar experiences. Artists who instinctively knew how to work with Andromedan materials. Musicians who could play their instruments without instruction. Healers who understood their medical techniques immediately. The Andromedans announced that they were ready to begin the real transformation. They had spent these months evaluating humanity, not to judge them, but to understand how best to help. Now they were ready to offer humanity a choice that would determine the future of both species. We can share our knowledge with you, Vera announced to the world. We can show you how to heal your world and join the galactic community. But this gift comes with responsibility. You must choose to grow beyond your old ways of thinking. You must choose cooperation over competition, wisdom over cleverness, and love over fear. Are you ready to make that choice? 1 year after the crystal ships first appeared, the world had become an enormous laboratory for hope. Jake Thompson was no longer an unemployed construction worker. He had become one of the lead engineers in humanity's first living city project, and every morning brought discoveries that would have seemed like magic just months before. The pilot program was being built in what used to be a polluted industrial zone outside Detroit. When Jake first arrived at the construction site, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Instead of bulldozers and concrete trucks, the area was filled with devices that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. Seed machines that planted the foundations of buildings directly into the earth. Growth accelerators that helped walls and floors develop like living trees. But following architectural plans, and most incredible of all, harmony generators that made sure every structure worked together as part of a larger living system. It's like the city is growing itself. Jake told his wife Kelly during one of their evening phone calls. She was working on a similar project in Phoenix, learning how to create water systems that actually produced more clean water than they consumed. The Living City project wasn't just about new technology, it was about a completely new way of thinking about human settlements. Traditional cities consumed resources and produced waste. These new cities would consume waste and produce resources. They would clean the air instead of polluting it. They would strengthen the soil instead of covering it with concrete. Most importantly, they would make the people living in them healthier and happier. Dr. Lisa Park had been assigned to study the psychological effects of the new technologies. What she discovered amazed her. People living and working in the pilot areas showed dramatically improved mental health. Depression rates dropped by over 60%. Anxiety disorders became rare. Even physical illnesses seemed to heal faster in the new environments. It's not just because their surroundings are cleaner, she explained in her reports. The living buildings actually produce frequencies that help human brains function better. They emit the same wavelengths that people produce when they're deeply relaxed and happy. It's like the city itself is designed to support human well-being. The educational systems were perhaps even more revolutionary. Jake's 10-year-old son Tommy had been struggling in traditional school, but now he was thriving in one of the new learning centers. Instead of sitting in rows memorizing facts, children learned by exploring, creating, and playing games that taught complex concepts without feeling like work. Dad, did you know that math is actually music? Tommy asked excitedly. One day, the Andromedan teacher showed us how numbers make patterns that sound beautiful when you play them. And art is actually science. Every color has a frequency, and when you combine them right, they can make people feel better. The learning centers didn't just teach subjects, they taught children how to think in ways that prepared them for a world where humans and Andromedans work together. Children learned to sense the emotions of others, to work in groups where everyone's ideas mattered, and to see connections between things that seemed unrelated. Most importantly, they learned that learning itself was one of life's greatest joys. Meanwhile, the medical breakthroughs were saving lives every day. Dr. Rachel Kim, who worked at the Pilot Medical Center in Seattle, had witnessed miracles that she never thought possible. Healing chambers that helped bodies remember their perfect blueprint and return to health. Diagnostic systems that could detect problems years before they would have shown symptoms. In traditional medicine, in therapeutic environments that helped people heal emotional trauma by literally rewiring their brain patterns in healthy ways. We're not just treating diseases anymore. Dr. Kim reported to her colleagues, we're helping people discover what it means to be truly healthy, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually healthy. The environmental restoration was happening faster than anyone had dared to hope. Areas that had been polluted for decades were becoming clean again in months. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch was being transformed into a thriving marine ecosystem by self-replicating cleanup organisms. Deserts were blooming as atmospheric processors extracted water from the air and delivered it exactly where it was needed. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in how people treated each other. The old patterns of competition and conflict were being replaced by cooperation and mutual support. It wasn't that humans had suddenly become perfect. They still had disagreements and problems. But they had learned new ways of resolving conflicts that left everyone feeling heard and respected. Jake experienced this personally when a problem arose at the Living City construction site. Two teams had different ideas about how to integrate the transportation system with the residential areas in the old world. This might have led to arguments, politics, and delays. Instead, they used Andromedan conflict resolution techniques. The teams came together in a harmony circle where everyone shared their ideas without judgment. Then they used empathy amplifiers, devices that helped people literally feel what others were feeling. Within hours, they had developed a solution that was better than either original idea, and everyone felt good about the outcome. It's like the technology helps us be the best versions of ourselves. Jake explained to a news reporter who was documenting the project. We're still human. But we're human with better tools for understanding each other and working together. The economic systems were transforming too, in the pilot areas. The old model of scarcity-based commerce was being replaced by abundance-based sharing, when everyone had access to clean energy, healthy food, and beautiful living spaces. The desperate competition for resources became unnecessary. People still worked, but they worked on projects they cared about, contributing their unique talents to the common good. President Rodriguez visited the Detroit pilot site and was amazed by what she saw. Children playing in gardens that grew between living buildings, adults working together on projects that seemed to combine art, science, and magic, elderly people who looked decades younger than their chronological age, their eyes bright with curiosity and joy. This is what paradise must look like, she whispered to Vera, who was giving her the tour. This is just the beginning, Vera replied. Wait until you see what happens when these principles are applied to an entire planet. As the first year of transformation concluded, humanity faced a choice point. The pilot programs had proven that the Andromedan way of life could work on Earth. The technology existed to transform the entire world, but it would require every nation, every community, and every individual to choose growth over comfort, cooperation over competition, and love over fear. The question was no longer whether humanity could change. The question was whether humanity would choose to change, and the answer to that question would determine not just Earth's future, but its place in a galactic community that was watching with hope and anticipation. 3 years had passed since the crystal ships first appeared, and Jake Thompson could barely recognize the world he now lived in. Standing on the observation deck of New Detroit, the living city he had helped build, he watched the sunrise paint the sky in colors that seemed more vivid than he remembered from the old days. The air was so clean it almost sparkled, and the gentle hum of the city's living systems created a peaceful background, melody that made everyone feel calm and happy. Below him, the city stretched out like a vast garden. Buildings grew in organic curves, their walls covered with plants that cleaned the air and produced food. Rivers flowed through the streets. But these weren't ordinary rivers. They were streams of pure water that the city's root systems filtered and enriched as they flowed. Children played in parks where the playground equipment grew from living trees, adapting and changing to give each child exactly the kind of challenge they needed to develop and grow. "Hard to believe we used to live any other way," said his friend Tony, joining him on the observation deck. Tony had been a taxi driver in the old world, but now he piloted one of the city's transport pods, vehicles that moved through tubes grown into the city's structure. Powered by the same life energy that kept the buildings healthy, Jake nodded, remembering his old apartment with its gray walls and stale air. "Sometimes I wonder if this is all a dream, and I'm going to wake up back in that cramped place, worried about paying rent." But this wasn't a dream. Poverty had become a thing of the past, not because money had been eliminated, but because abundance had been achieved. The living cities produced everything their inhabitants needed: clean energy from consciousness-responsive generators, fresh food from vertical gardens, pure water from atmospheric condensers, and beautiful homes that grew to match their occupants' needs and preferences. Dr. Lisa Park, now Director of Human Andromedan Cooperation Studies, was preparing for humanity's biggest moment yet. The Galactic Council had invited Earth to send representatives to their annual gathering on Centauri Prime. It would be humanity's first official appearance as a developing member of the cosmic community. "Are we really ready for this?" President Rodriguez asked during their preparation meeting. She had been re-elected twice, but her role had evolved dramatically. Instead of governing through control and law enforcement, she now served as a facilitator, helping coordinate the voluntary cooperation that kept society running smoothly. "Look around you," Dr. Park replied, gesturing toward the view outside the council chamber windows. "Crime has dropped by 98%, not because we have more police, but because people don't want to hurt each other anymore. Mental illness has become rare because everyone has purpose and community. Wars have ended because nations realize they achieve more by sharing resources than fighting over them. I think we're ready." The transformation hadn't happened overnight, and it hadn't been without challenges. Some groups had resisted the changes, preferring the familiar struggles of the old world to the uncertainties of paradise. But even the resistance movements had gradually been won over as they saw their friends and family becoming healthier, happier, and more fulfilled. Jake's son Tommy, now 13, was part of the first generation to grow up in the new world. His education included not just traditional subjects, but also consciousness development, galactic history, and interspecies communication. Tommy and his classmates thought in ways that previous generations could barely understand. They saw connections everywhere, felt empathy for all living things, and approached problems with creative solutions that amazed their elders. "Dad, did you know that on Arcturus, they have cities that float in their gas giant's atmosphere?" Tommy said excitedly one evening. "And the Pleiadians build their homes inside living coral structures in space. Each species found their own way to live in harmony with their environment." The medical advances have been perhaps the most dramatic change. Dr. Rachel Kim, now head of the Global Health Coordination Center, regularly saw miracles that would have been impossible just years before. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries simply no longer existed. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and even aging itself had been conquered through technologies that help the body maintain its perfect blueprint. "We don't just treat symptoms anymore," Dr. Kim explained to a group of visiting medical students. "We help people understand that perfect health is their natural state. The healing chambers don't impose health on the body, they remove the barriers that prevent the body from healing itself." But the changes went deeper than just physical health. People were discovering abilities they never knew they had. Artists created works that seemed to paint themselves. Guided by inspiration that flowed directly from the quantum field, scientists made breakthrough discoveries by intuiting connections that pure logic couldn't reach. Even ordinary people found they could sense each other's emotions, communicate telepathically over short distances, and sometimes even glimpse possible futures. Jake experienced this himself while working on the new lunar colony project. The Andromedans had invited humanity to help establish a research station on the moon, which would serve as a stepping stone to exploring the galaxy. As Jake worked with the consciousness-responsive construction tools, he found that he could sense exactly what the living building materials needed to grow properly. It was as if he had developed a new sense organ that could feel the intentions of matter itself. The environmental restoration had exceeded everyone's wildest dreams. The Amazon rainforest had not only been restored, but expanded, becoming a vast living laboratory where Earth's original ecosystems flourished alongside Andromedan plant species. That enhanced the planet's biodiversity. The oceans had become crystal clear, filled with abundant life. Even the polar ice caps had been restored to their natural balance. Cities around the world had been transformed into garden paradises. Paris bloomed with living architecture that made the city more beautiful than ever before. Tokyo became a vertical forest where millions of people lived in harmony with nature. Cairo's buildings filtered sand from the air and transformed it into fertile soil. Every major population center had become a showcase of what was possible when technology served life instead of profit. The economic transformation had been the most surprising aspect of the New World. When basic needs were easily met through abundant technology, people stopped working for survival and started working for joy. Artists created because they loved to create. Engineers built because they loved to solve problems. Teachers taught because they loved to share knowledge. Without the pressure of economic necessity, humanity discovered its true passion for growth, learning, and contribution. Jake often visited the memorial gardens that had been created where the old factories and pollution sources used to stand. These beautiful spaces honored the struggles of previous generations, while celebrating the transformation that their sacrifices had made possible. Children who visited these gardens learned about the old world not with shame, but with gratitude for the courage it had taken to change. As the third year concluded, Ambassador Vera made an announcement that sent waves of excitement around the world. Earth has achieved what we call the harmony threshold, she said during a global broadcast. Your species has learned to live in balance with your planet and with each other. You are ready to take your place as full members of the galactic community. The celebration that followed lasted for weeks, not the wild parties of the old world, but joyful gatherings where people shared stories, created art together, and marveled at how far they had come. Jake stood once again on his observation deck, this time surrounded by friends from around the world and even a few Andromedan visitors, watching fireworks that painted the sky with living light. What happens next? Someone asked. Vera smiled, her eyes twinkling with the same wisdom that had guided humanity through its transformation. Now you help others find their way to paradise, just as we helped you. The universe is vast, and there are many species still struggling as you once struggled. Your journey of growth is just beginning. 5 years had passed since the crystal ships first appeared, and Jake Thompson was preparing for the adventure of a lifetime. As one of Earth's first galactic ambassadors, he would be traveling to Kepler-4b, a planet whose inhabitants were facing the same challenges Earth had overcome. The irony wasn't lost on him. The unemployed construction worker, who had once worried about paying rent, was now heading to another star system to help build paradise there too. The departure ceremony was held in Central Park, where the first Andromedan Communications Center had been established. The site had become a holy place of sorts, a reminder of the moment when humanity's destiny changed forever. Thousands of people gathered to see off the first group of human ambassadors. But there was no sadness in their farewell. Everyone understood that this was the next step in humanity's evolution. Remember, Ambassador Vera told the departing team, you're not going there to impose our way of life on them. Every species must find their own path to harmony. Your job is simply to show them that transformation is possible and offer whatever help they're ready to receive. Dr. Lisa Park, now in her 60s but looking decades younger thanks to the healing technologies, was part of the diplomatic team. She had become an expert in what they called consciousness archaeology, the study of how different species developed awareness and wisdom. Her research had helped the Andromedans understand how to approach other civilizations in ways that honor their unique perspectives. Each world teaches us something new, she had written in her latest book, The Path to Paradise, a universal journey. The Arcturians learn harmony through music. The Pleiadians found it through living art. The Centaurians achieved it through mathematical meditation. Humans discovered it through the marriage of technology and compassion. Every species adds a new note to the cosmic symphony of consciousness. Tommy, now 17, was part of the first class of students accepted to the Galactic University on Andromedan Prime. He would study universal harmony engineering, the science of helping civilizations transition from struggle to abundance. His generation thought of interstellar travel the way previous generations had thought of trips to other countries. The universe had become humanity's neighborhood. It's weird to think that just 5 years ago, people thought we were alone in the universe. Tommy said to his father before leaving for his studies, "Now I have classmates from 12 different star systems, and we're all working together to help other worlds transform." The changes on Earth continued to amaze even those who had lived through them. Crime had essentially disappeared, not through law enforcement, but because people no longer wanted to harm each other. Prisons had been converted into healing centers, where the few individuals who still struggle with antisocial behaviors received help, rather than punishment. Mental illness had become extremely rare as people lived in environments designed to support psychological well-being. Education had evolved beyond recognition. Children learned by exploring, creating, and playing in environments that adapted to their individual learning styles. A child interested in space might find themselves in a classroom that resembled the bridge of a starship, where mathematics was learned through navigation calculations and history was taught through the stories of different civilizations. Another child drawn to biology might learn in a living laboratory, where they could observe ecosystems developing in real time. The most profound change was in how humans related to death. The healing technologies had extended healthy lifespans to several centuries, but more importantly, death itself had lost its terror. Through consciousness research, humanity had discovered that awareness continued beyond physical existence. Death became a transition rather than an ending, and people approached it with curiosity rather than fear. Jake's grandmother, who had passed away peacefully at the age of 127, had spent her final days teaching children about the old world and helping them understand how precious their current paradise was. "Don't take any of this for granted," she had told them. "Paradise isn't something you receive. It's something you create and maintain through conscious choice every single day." The relationship with the Andromedans had evolved from teacher-student to true partnership. Many Andromedans had chosen to remain on Earth permanently, while humans traveled to the Andromedan worlds to share their unique perspectives. The two species were collaborating on projects that neither could have accomplished alone. Living technologies that grew through space. Consciousness-based communication networks that connected entire star systems. And artistic creations that expressed emotions in ways that transcended language. President Rodriguez, now serving her third term in what had become more of a ceremonial role, often reflected on how governance had transformed. Laws were still necessary, but they were created through consensus rather than conflict. Decisions were made by communities working together rather than by politicians competing for power. The role of government had shifted from controlling people to coordinating their voluntary cooperation. "We used to spend most of our energy on problems," she explained to a group of visiting dignitaries from other worlds. "Military conflicts, economic inequality, environmental destruction, social unrest. Now we spend our energy on possibilities. What can we create together? How can we help each other grow? What new wonders can we discover?" The arts had flourished beyond anything previous generations could have imagined. Musicians created symphonies that could be felt as well as heard, using frequencies that promoted healing and joy. Visual artists painted with living light that continued to evolve after the artwork was completed. Writers crafted stories that allowed readers to experience them from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Even cooking had become an art form, with chefs creating meals that nourished not just the body, but also the emotions and spirit. Technology and nature had become completely integrated. Cities grew like forests, with each building contributing to the health of a whole ecosystem. Transportation systems flowed like rivers, carrying people smoothly from place to place without noise or pollution. Communication networks functioned like nervous systems, allowing instant connection while respecting privacy and personal boundaries. As Jake prepared to board the consciousness-powered ship that would carry him to another star system, he thought about his old life and marveled at the journey humanity had taken. 5 years ago, he had been a struggling construction worker in a world that seemed to be falling apart. Now he was an ambassador of paradise, carrying the hope of transformation to another world. His wife, Kelly, now a master ecosystem designer who had helped create floating gardens in the Earth's stratosphere, came to see him off. "Do you ever miss the old world?" she asked him. Jake thought about it seriously. "I miss the intensity sometimes. The way every small victory felt huge because we had to fight so hard for it. But I don't miss the fear, the anger, or the feeling that we were all alone in an uncaring universe." The ship itself was a marvel, a living vessel that responded to the consciousness of its crew and passengers. As Jake and the other ambassadors settled into their chambers, which adapted to provide exactly the environment each person needed. For the long journey, he felt a deep sense of purpose and excitement. Through the ship's transparent walls, he could see Earth growing smaller in the distance. The planet glowed with a soft blue-green light that came not from reflected sunlight, but from the life energy of its thriving ecosystems. Andromedan ships still floated above the major cities, but now they were joined by vessels from dozens of other worlds. The planet had become a hub of galactic civilization. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying humanity's message of hope to another struggling world, Jake smiled and settled back for the journey. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but humanity was no longer alone in exploring it. They had family among the stars, and together they would help every world that was ready to choose paradise over struggle. The age of miracles had become the age of everyday wonders, and the best was yet to come.